Shavua Tov, everyone. Welcome to week number 59 in our Tillis Tells WhatsApp story group. I titled this one, Death Camp Water Dilemma. The Holy Rabbi Yekusiel-Yehuda Halberstram of Klausenberg, in the Holocaust, lost his wife, 11 children, and 250 other family members. Miraculously, he survived despite all odds, despite the disease and the death and the torture. And he even somehow was able to be a point of light and optimism for the other prisoners. After the war, at the behest of Rabbi Yoel of Satmar, he became the Rebbe also of the orphan Sanz Hasidim. In 1944, it was part of a group of 3,000 Jewish prisoners that were moved from the Birkinau death camp to go to Warsaw to clean up the mess from the Warsaw Ghetto uprising. And it was very difficult work, backbreaking and continuous. There was the guards who made sure that nobody ever stopped to rest. It was in itself a kind of torture. One of the prisoners whom he expired, Rabbi Halperin, who also survived the Holocaust, tells of how the sons of Rebbe personally saved the lives of thousands and thousands of prisoners. This happened when one hot summer day, after the arduous work in Warsaw, when suddenly the Germans called an inspection, had everybody line up in rows of 3, and told them to start marching. It seems the Russians were closing in on Warsaw, and the Nazis, the evil Nazis, did not want to leave behind any evidence of the terrible atrocities that they had engaged in. It was they walked and walked. They weren't given any water. This is one of those infamous death marches. The Germans couldn't care less how many Jewish lives were lost. If somebody stepped out of formation for even one step, he was shot. And this was especially difficult when they would come across a body of water, a stream or a brook, where people were going crazy from thirst, and they were just like they couldn't resist. It was instinctual to make a move towards the water. And then anybody who, as I said, broke ranks then was immediately riddled with bullets. Everywhere there were Nazis and dogs barking and barking. That night, the Sons of Rebbe passed the word around that it would be that nobody should break rank, and that there would be water. So, but night came. They couldn't. Night came, and there was no water. And began the complaints and the moaning and the suffering. And the next day again, many more people got killed because they weren't able to physically keep walking, or they weren't able to resist breaking out of line whenever they saw water. So the Sons of Rebbe again asked the word be passed out to not nobody should break the ranks, but he also promised that he personally would take responsibility that they would have water that second night. Night meant as soon as it became dark after sunset. The Nazis didn't try to make them march at night, because in the dark it would be much easier for someone to escape. Instead, they insisted, as soon as it became dark, they just insisted right there, everybody lie down on the road, and there they would be for the night. Those that had heard the promise of the Sons of Rebbe, so they crowded around him and said, "No, where's the water that you promised? People are dying right and left from thirst." So the Rebbe calmly said, "Look, everyone has a spoon, right? referring to the spoons, the wooden spoons that the Germans would give them for when they apportioned the meager rations of soup. So let each person take his spoon and dig in the ground, and they'll have water. Those that heard him were totally amazed. They turned slowly in all four directions. Wherever they looked, they were surrounded by dry fields as far as the eye can see, without any sight of even a drop of water. Everything was just hot and dry and deserted, a wasteland. How could there possibly be water? But the Rebbe said, and what else was there to do? So each one laid down on his side, because the Germans were making them lie down, and surreptitiously stuck his spoon into the ground and began to dig. And each person found water, and a great miracle, and were able to survive because of this. Now, when I first heard this story, soon after we moved to Sfat, at a Saturday night gathering party in my own home, so a French Ole told about this story, and sitting next to him was another French Ole, David Moshe Voda, a healer. And the one telling the story, when he concluded, said that David Moshe Voda his uncle was there, one of the people that was there, and said that the Klausenberg Rebbe, when this happened, concluded by saying, "My friends, you have merited to partake of the well of Miriam," referring to the miraculous source of water that from which the millions, the hundreds of thousands of Jews in the desert were able to survive for 40 years with. In 1990, the Sanz Klausenberger Rebbe was one of the great Rebbes of his generation and a major Jewish leader. He's best known for his revitalization of serious Talmudic study with his Mifal Shas program, where people gain stipends for learning in depth 20 or 30, there were 2 tracks, 20 to 30 pages of Gemara a month, and especially for his great efforts in getting erected the Laniado Hospital in Netanya, where everything is done according to the highest level of Jewish law and medical practice. There's no other hospital like it in the world. In 1994, the calendar was the same as it is this year, and so when the Lubavitcher Rebbe passed away on the evening of the beginning of the 3rd of Tammuz, it was a Saturday night. A Saturday night. 6.5 days later, on Shabbat day, closing the week, the Sanz Rebbe passed away during Shabbos day. That means that tonight and tomorrow is the 27th yortzeit of this great holy Jew, Rabbi Yekusiel-Yehuda of Klausenberg, Sanz.